we'll go into the next slide. All right, so jumping into today's agenda. So we have a lot to share with you today. So we have the welcome, the workshop session, of course, the CBO and LEA partnerships to support high quality ELO-P programs. It is day 4 of the ELO-P Academy, and really it's going to build off of a lot of the things that we've heard earlier in the academies. If you've joined us for any of those, or if you've watched any of those sessions, right, the nuts and bolts, if you joined us earlier in the week, right, when it comes to audits or FPMs, when you think about single comprehensive program, right, when it comes to our community-based organizations and partnerships, right, a lot of that really comes together when it comes to these partnerships. So we're hoping to build off of some of those learnings today. We'll have some closing comments. We'll have a transition into our regional breakout sessions to have a little bit more of a shared learning space as well. And then the Zoom will end in those breakout sessions at 12. All right, so for these shared learning spaces, we had some great feedback on these ELO-P academies, which we greatly appreciate. Some things that were pointed out to us were things like, hey, we cannot copy things in the chat, right? And so if you've noticed in our spaces, it is not a webinar format, right? We allow people to put things in the chat. We don't share the presentations ahead of time, right? So we do have a specific way that we like to set up our shared spaces and learning spaces. But we didn't know that you could not copy the chat box information and shared resources. And so we want to thank you for the feedback on that piece. We don't allow for the chat box to be downloaded just for security reasons, but we do like to share resources afterwards. And so the way that we set up our learning spaces is that it's not a lot of time that we have with you, right? We only have about 60 minutes of the main contact time, and then you have your regional breakouts to really digest that information with your peers. And so the way that we really set it up is really to help bring awareness, right, to you all, and to bring some content to you all. And then we like it to really be a shared learning experience where you're bringing in your promising practices, you're asking questions, we're dropping some resources in the chat, and we're really having a shared learning experience. And then the continued learning will happen in other spaces as well. So we don't expect you to be an expert in this space, right? We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here with us, but I just wanted to let you know that the resources, again, will be shared afterwards, right? The recording will be shared afterwards. And during your time here we hope that you're present with us, right? If you have any ideas or questions, please do drop them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. We've created a Google Doc that hopefully will help us in the meantime in our spaces be able to give you a space to copy and paste the resources as they get dropped into the chat along the way, so you can copy and paste them. So my team has already, I think, dropped them in the chat. There'll be a Google Doc. So we will please continue to ask your questions in the chat for the system of support, who is always so great at answering some of those questions. Please continue to do so. And our team will grab them, put them in a Google Doc off to the side so that you all can view it and copy and paste it off to the side. So I just wanted to say that we're trying to figure out a sidestep into the issue of not being able to copy and paste in the chat. But I just wanted to say that, we intentionally don't share the presentation slides ahead of time because sometimes we can't anticipate the questions that come up and the amazing resources that come up and the shared learning that comes up during these spaces. And the way I like to describe it is it kind of reminds me of a potluck. I know it sounds kind of silly, but it's like we sign up for like the main dish is like what it reminds me of. And then you all kind of bring in the sides, right? Like you bring in like the appetizers of the mac and cheese, right? Sometimes the CD has to come in with like the veggies, like, right? The like nitty gritty things like that. Maybe we don't always want to have to do, but it's like the things that we have to have answered, right? Which veggies are very much important, and we very much appreciate the CD coming in and answering those questions, right? But we're all here to come to the potluck and bring in what we have in our knowledge to come together and learn. And that's why we have those regional breakouts too, to really digest what we heard. We don't expect you to remember everything that you heard, right? But just to digest what you heard, to explore some wonderings that you may have heard as well. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to acknowledge that how we set up our shared learning spaces. in this learning environment, right? Another thing I want to say is that as a facilitator, I would say the way I show up when it comes to the potluck is that I probably will be the one who brings the salsa, and my salsa may be a little spicy. And so I always like to warn people with that as well, because I tend to be a little direct. In our family, in our culture, honesty is kindness. And that's not always the norm when it comes to educational spaces, right? And I like to just give that warning ahead of time. It's because in my culture, it's seen as kindness. It's seen as a place of love, right? It's because I trust you all, and it's because I believe that you all are here because you believe in your community and that you want to do what's best for your community as well. And so I just want to warn you that my salsa as a facilitator has a little kick, has a little spice. And I just wanted to let you all know that it's because it comes from love. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so I just wanted to, this slide here is, this is day 4 of the ELO-P Academy. And so with all the resources, you can scan this with your phone or click on the bit.ly afterwards, and you can access all the resources from all the academies, days 1 through 4. All right, and then we have our last spring session for the office hours is May 10th. And then keep a lookout for the summer office hours dates and times to come out soon. This is another space to have continued learning. So maybe if something stood out to you, or later on you had questions after watching a recording and you still didn't have it, office hours is another great space to show up and ask your specific questions as well. So we really encourage you to come and to have some continued learning with us. And then you can also connect with us by scanning here. You can have access to our link tree, which is just a place where you can find all of our resources in one easy spot. All right, and then of course, it's always great to connect with our system of support. Every region has their regional teams that are also there to support you and to help get you access to different resources and people to help you out with any questions that you may have. So make sure to scan there and get connected with your regional team if you haven't already. And the regional breakouts is another great place to get that, to get connected with them if you haven't already, right? All right, so now we're going to go ahead and jump into the main content. You're in for a treat. We have amazing speakers here with us today to talk about their lived experiences and to give you some insights when it comes to how do you actually partner when it comes to CBOs and school district partnerships. We get a lot of questions in office hours and academies on how to actually do that. And there's different layers of it, right? Depending on if you're ELO-P only, if maybe you have ELO-P and other types of funding, right? If you're new or if you've been doing this for a while. So we have Julee Brooks, CEO, Woodcraft Rangers, and Connie, the Director of Expanded Learning with Fresno Unified School District here with us today to give you some insights and learning from their experiences to hopefully answer some of those questions for you. And again, we only have so much time with you, so we're going to do our best to give you as much insights as we can today. And what a wonderful opportunity that we have in education, right? In this room, if you think about it, what an amazing experience. Like our students, our families need so much when it comes to education. I think the pandemic really exposed and really reiterated how our families, our students, our communities need so much, and no one entity can do that alone, right? Like we know that, right? Schools are really struggling when it comes to the workforce and resources, right? Like no one person can do it alone, and expanded learning has a really long history of really supporting students and families in collaboration with community, right? If you think about the room alone, right? We have folks from school districts and county offices of ed and community partners really coming together and have been coming together to support students in their learning and enrichment and for many decades, right? So what a great opportunity to continue this type of collaboration, right? We see that with community schools as well, and really expanded learning has been doing this for many, many decades, for a long time, right? So we're excited to continue to support your deepening of relationships or maybe the start of a relationship. So really excited for that part. I think it's also important to note that those who are new, possibly new to CBO partnerships when it comes to education, you see here we call it partner, right? I think sometimes we think of partners as maybe like a vendor, right? But really it is a partnership, right? It is a collaboration and should be looked at as that, right? And so just some of those things to kind of keep in mind when we think about partnerships. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so what are we doing today? What are we covering? So before I hand it over to Julie and Connie to give you their presentations, I'll go over quickly on the fact that partnerships are really rooted in research, and that'll be a high level. It's going to be kind of like a Costco sampler, if you will, when it comes to the potluck. And then Connie will go over the LEA insights with Fresno Unified School District. Then Julie will go over CBO partnerships and the insights from Woodcraft Rangers. If we have time, we'll do a Q&A. And then we'll do the closing and transition to the regional breakouts where you can continue any of those conversations and share any learnings or promising practices that you may all have. All right, and then for today's learning structure, please do engage in the chat. Share your ideas, share your thoughts, any resources that you may have, any promising practices. We have a team of folks, system of support, our team at CAN and others will do our best to answer them. And if there's any resources, please still drop them in the chat and we'll move them over to the Google resource or the Google Doc resource page to make sure that they don't get lost. Because you all have knowledge too, right? You have something to bring to this potluck. There's a lot of wisdom that we want to uplift in the chat. We have two amazing speakers here today, and those are just two perspectives, right? Every community is very different, and there's going to be different resources and different ideas and promising practices that work for different communities, right? So we want to make sure that we uplift those in the chat. Excuse me. And then, like I said, the regional breakouts will also be facilitated where more learning and sharing can happen as well. And then before we go to the next slide, we're actually, oh, let's go back one, I forgot. And I had the image there for the poll to remind me, and I still forgot. So we're gonna launch a quick poll just to get an idea of who is in the space. So team, if we can launch the quick poll to get an idea of who is in the space. All right. Ooh, it is exciting to see. People are still answering. I think we have about 2/3 answered. We have a lot more of a spread than I thought. Let's see, we'll give folks a few more moments to answer. Let's see, we have a few more trickling in. Okay, we'll give 10 seconds. If anyone else wants to answer the poll. Okay. I am going to end the poll now. Not everyone answered, but we had a good amount of folks answer. And let's share results. Okay, so here in this space, we have 10% CBO organizations. We have 13% that are school districts that have ELO-P only, 30% or 37%, right, school districts that have ELO-P and other state funding, whether that's ACES or 21st Century. We have about a quarter are county offices of ed, 10% from some kind of government agency, 7% other. So we have a great mix of different folks in this space, which is amazing that you all are here. And we have a lot of different perspectives in the space. So thank you all for being here. All right, so let's dive into a little bit of grounding. I shared a couple of pictures I had in this space. So I started out a little bit about, I guess, background about me. I started at a CBO. My background was actually in business, and I never thought I would get into education at all, actually. And so I think something important to remember about your community-based organizations, right, when I was talking about this idea that no one entity can really do it alone, right? And remembering that piece. And it's for a lot of different reasons. And I think it's important to remember that sometimes not everyone has the best experience, right, in an educational setting for whatever reason that might be. And it's not to say that it's not an amazing school district or school setting. Sometimes there's things out of your control, right? For me, I will share, I had a very traumatic experience when it came to my education, and it had nothing to do with my school district's fault necessarily. I went to a beautiful school district that is an amazing school district that my son goes to now. But I did have traumatic experience. And so I would have never gone into education, never, ever. But if it wasn't for the CBO that I got an internship with, that's a picture of me, my junior year in college, I would have never gotten into the field. Right. And here I am 10 years later because of a beautiful community-based organization that I ended up sticking with the field and completely changing my trajectory of my career. Right. And here I am now sitting and facilitating a conversation with you all today. Right. They embraced me and my son. That's a picture of my son Crimson when he was little. He has a badge with him, and they let me take him to work with me when I had to, right? And they really made me feel like a place of home, right? And they made me feel like not ashamed to have my son and to bring him to work when I needed to. And that wasn't something I was used to seeing, right? You don't always typically see those things. And I think it's a really unique quality that CBOs can bring, community-based organizations can bring into a culture and into an agency, right, that needs to really be recognized and as such a beautiful thing, right? And so that's just a little bit personally about me. And from my experience, I had the fortunate opportunity to meet a lot of people working at CBOs throughout the state of California. And so California has a rich history of CBOs really supporting expanded learning programs for many, many decades, and quality programming, right? So they've supported up and down the state of California. I wish I could name them all now, but there's so many I cannot name. But they are doing quality work and have for many years, right? And I think it's important to honor that. They are also very humble. They will never brag about themselves. They make magic happen out of nothing, as many school districts do as well, right? But they're kind of expected to do that as well, right? They're not going to ask for much, and they're expected to do much with nothing. And I think we really need to think about that differently, right? It's not really okay to have that mentality. Like, yes, they're a community-based organization, but they are human and they also deserve certain things, right? And they bring a lot to the table as well, and they should be respected as such. But they a lot of times won't ask for that, and they won't say that, and they do it a lot of times out of the kindness of their heart. And sometimes that's being taken advantage of, right? And so I think I just wanted to speak that into this space because sometimes that is taken advantage of or it's overlooked. And it's such a critical piece of our community and in our kids' lives, our families' lives, right, in our communities' lives. I think it's also important to uplift Michael Funk, right, the director of expanded learning programs at the California Department of Ed, also has a rich history of working at community-based organizations and leading them in San Francisco at the Beacon Centers. And another thing to note is CBOs have a long history of advocating, right, for expanded learning funding for many, many years, which you can see in the top of this slide. And they've contributed to things, right, like being authors and co-authors of the quality standards that you see right in front of you. So they've really helped shape expanded learning throughout the years and have played a significant role in shaping how quality looks in expanded learning throughout the state, and have done a lot of contributions. So I just wanted to note that from my personal experience that I've seen and real obviously impact that they've made. So that's a little bit about that slide and a little bit about me. So we'll move forward. Now, here is the Costco appetizer, if you will. I'm going to go through this really quickly. This isn't for you to feel like you have to be an expert in this. I just wanted to expose you to some research that is out there for you to go back and you can explore on your own when you have time. Okay, so there is a worksheet that we will share afterwards that you can also look at and go through with this research as well. But again, I don't want to share it now to overwhelm you with all the other information that's coming out. So I'm going to go through this quickly. But again, it's just to kind of broaden your awareness and to show you some other resources that are available. Okay, so really when we think about this idea of partnering with a CBO, it really is rooted in research. And here is a couple of documents that you can refer to look more into this and really looking at how partnerships are rooted in bolstering the impacts of protective factors. We'll go to the next slide. So protective factors are, conditions or attributes like strengths, resources, supports, coping strategies in individuals, families, or communities that enhance healthy development and help a person successfully navigate life's challenges, increasing health and well-being. This QR code here is linked to a logic model, which is also another great resource. There's a lot there. I'm not going to go too much into depth to it, but another great resource for you for later. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. So there is protective factors framework. So when research on protective factors and resilience emphasizes the importance of 3 broad areas of environmental support. So we know caring relationships, high expectations, and meaningful opportunities for participation and contribution, right? We'll go to the next slide. When we think about protective factors framework, when these 3 protective factors are present in any kind of environment, right? So whether that's in the family, schools, communities, after school program, in any really environment, when they work together in like a dynamic process to create a climate that's optimal for fostering resilience and positive youth development, they are essential to meeting the basic developmental needs felt by all people, right, of all ages, for safety, love, belonging, respect, like a sense of mastery, personal power, meaning in life, autonomy, right, belonging, anything that's really core to our being. When these needs are met, the negative effects of trauma, adversity, or any other stressors are mitigated, and people are more likely to, we'll get it to the next slide, they're more likely to feel connected, right, and develop social emotional competencies and other personal assets, and avoid engagement and risky behaviors, right? We'll go to the next slide. And so you might be wondering, like, well, how does these protective factors really come into play when it comes to partners and partnership? And I highlighted this piece, and I won't read this whole thing, but really when you think about what can communities do to amplify efforts to support the protective factors, when we think about partnerships impacting, I'm so sorry, I ran out of water and now my mouth is getting dry. I'm like, who brought the lemonade to the potluck? I need it. Anyway, sorry, back to the slides. When we think about establishing a sense of partnership, it is so important that there is this perception and that there's reliability, that there's trust, that there's this joint planning and information dissemination and sharing between community-based organizations, school districts, and cross-sector partners that support the family and children, right? The depth and scope of relationship between these partners begin with trust and integrity between the school and after school program. So this idea of trust and integrity and joint planning, right, and information dissemination. So the more that they're embedded in relationship with one another, the stronger that the protective factors are going to be embedded. Okay, so there is research rooted in how the more that there is relationship among community and partnerships around our after school programming, the more strong that these protective factors are in place, right? And then the more that you're going to have support for our youth and set them up for success. So I just really want to hone in that this idea of partnership really is rooted in research and is really going to support and set up our youth and our families for success. Okay, so again, I'm not going to go into depth. We only have 60 minutes and we haven't even gotten to the stars of the show, Connie and Julie. Okay, we have one more slide to get to. And this is the collaboration continuum. And I think the first time I saw this, I think it was a kind of a rude awakening, honestly, for me and somebody who really believes in working with community. And we can easily get into this slippery slope thinking like, of course I believe in community, and of course I believe in youth voice, parent voice. But then when you look at, am I truly collaborating and integrating with my community, or am I just networking or coordinating with them? Meaning, am I just exchanging information with them, right? Am I just coordinating with them? Like, am I just inviting one person to my meeting? Or am I truly collaborating and integrating with them, where kind of like the single comprehensive program talked about, if you were there for day 2, where it's seamless, especially when it comes to community facing, where you're truly in partnership to set everyone up for success, right? Meaning, or also, is my ego in the way and I think I know everything and I'm doing to my community? Or am I in true relationship with my community and the different pockets of my community to do the programming for our youth and families? And this was a big ego check when I first saw this, right? And I think we all need to be reminded of that, because a lot of us in education have a lot of fancy degrees and a lot of experience, and it can get really easy to think we have all the answers. And it's really hard, right, sometimes to be reminded that we don't. And it can be a lot of work to meet all the different needs of our communities. But the reality is there's a lot of different needs in our communities and we can't do it alone. And that's hard to relinquish control, right? It's hard, especially if you've been doing a lot of work yourself. So I just want to remind us all that it's not about us, it's about our communities and it's about our impact. And I know you're here because you care. I know you're here because you care. And so I think we just need to remind ourselves that sometimes we need to check that part of us. And I think our educational systems and the way it's all been set up is like we're in this fear-based mindset and we get so stressed out that the easier thing to do is to hold on, right, and to control. And that is understandable because sometimes we're put in that position as educators. So whatever we need to do to help relinquish that, I think we need to think about those things because we're human, right? And we're put in impossible situations as educators. So it's not to say that we're bad for doing that. We're just put in these impossible situations. So I am done talking now and I need to go get my lemonade from the potluck. So we'll go to the next slide. And now it's time to pass it over to the amazing Connie Cha from Fresno Unified School District to share some wisdom and insight and some gems for you all today. So Connie, I will pass it to you.
Thank you so much, Malia. Can you hear me okay? All right. So welcome, everyone. I'm so excited and truly honored to be given this opportunity to share a little bit with you about my journey, or my LEA, Fresno Unified School District's journey. And so here in the wonderful world of Fresno Unified Expanded Learning, one of the things that I frequently get asked, and I hope that I can share some insight to help you if you are still trying to figure out, how to make expanded learning opportunities work for your district, your LEA, or through your organization, if you are a community-based organization or county office, is building clarity and coherence and support within the LEA that you are either with or that you are going to be partnered with or you are already partnered with. And so before I dive into that, I just want to give some fun facts about Fresno Unified. So we are part of Region 7, yay. And we are the 3rd largest district in the state of California, serving about 73,000 students. Of the 73,000 students, we have roughly 38,000 students that are TK through 6th grade. We consist of 104 schools in our district only. And of the 104 schools, we have 68 schools that are elementary. Our school district student body makes up, well, actually 88% of our students are UPP in Fresno Unified. I have been truly honored to be in this Director of Expanded Learning position in Fresno Unified for 6 years and counting. And so very fortunate to be part of this work prior to the pandemic, and then, going through it, and being one of the people who said, hey, we can do this, and expanded learning, here we come. Because as you all know, that expanded learning really became front and center as soon as the pandemic hit, which is rightfully so, because a lot of the things that come out of expanded learning programs really helped address many of the gaps that existed with what our student needs are and our family needs are. So enough about the fun facts with my district. Going back to building clarity, coherence, and support within your LEA. So regardless of your role, whether you are here today as part of a LEA, county office, or community-based organization, or other, it's really important for the LEAs to really understand the intent and purpose of expanded learning in an LEA. And so many districts that have reached out to me for any kind of one-on-one just discussion and sharing of best ideas, I've always shared about how I led this work, knowing that I needed to start from within my LEA and build that coherence. So not everybody understands the work of expanded learning, regardless of their position. And I needed to make sure that the communication and the clarity and coherence was provided from the ground up, reaching all the way up to the level of my superintendent and my deputy superintendent, and ultimately my school board trustees. In order to do that, I needed to make sure that I connected and provided the amount of information that was needed for anyone who were decision makers in my district. I think that is very powerful because when people have a better understanding of what it is that we are here to do as expanded learning, then they are able to speak to it. They're able to advocate and also be able to see the value of expanded learning within an LEA. And without that, you will encounter a lot of challenges because when people don't know, they can't make the best decisions to help support what is needed. And so the clarity, coherence, and support within an LEA will really make a drastic difference between how community partnerships are brought in and how the actual individuals within an LEA whose direct scope of work is the expanded learning programs, how that work can roll out in a district. And so with that, that was one of the things I did from the very start when I landed in this role in my LEA, and continuing. So once you build clarity and coherence and you you start designing the model of how you would like to bring in community partnerships and expand this work, that communication needs to continue. It's not a one-stop shop where you drop in a lot of information and then they don't see from you, the decision makers in the LEA, they don't see or hear from you. It's continuous and it has to be, because this work is ever growing, ever changing, depending on what the interests and needs are that's stemming out of your students and your families that you serve. So there has to be that ongoing piece. I've told several districts that you have to always be like an item on any kind of agenda in order to provide updates. And whether an LEA prefers updates in written format, in more one-on-one closed session format, whatever whatever that system is within LEAs, there needs to be the communication, and it needs to be ongoing with frequent updates about this is where we're going. These are the things that we didn't quite hit the mark on, and this is what we're trying to do in hopes of hitting the mark of whatever our outcomes or goals are. So whether you have just ELO-P or ELO-P and other state expanded learning funding sources, it was really important that I was the voice and the face within my LEA to speak to the programs and just calling it expanded learning, to the eyes and ears and experience truly of our students and our families. They should not know any difference in regards to what the funding source is behind the scenes. And I think that's really important. And some districts have really learned from that with what I shared with them, that they said, okay, I need to stop thinking about it in compartmentalization if I have more than one funding source. For those districts who are fortunate that they only have ELO-P funding only, then you're like, hey, I'm good to go. But any of the districts that have more than one, I truly recommend for you to start to be the voice and for you to really push for, hey, it's just expanded learning. Because regardless of the funding sources, it's all expanded learning. And I think that that really unifies any of the programs that stems out of the work of expanded learning. With ELO-P, and the intent and purpose of our time today is to talk about the efforts under my leadership in Fresno Unified Expanded Learning to really partner with communities, our community organizations, and really grow that. And so I do want to share that our initial call out to the community was not like a silver bullet, a one size fits all. We utilized many different strategies to really get out there into our community and to get our community to understand what it is that we are calling out and wanting to partner with them. I really enjoyed Malia, your quick run through of the collaboration continuum, because if you are truly doing this work, regardless if you are a LEA on this call or a CBO or a county office, etc., the collaboration continuum, it should be a fluid process. I find myself through any of the work with doing collaboration with our community partners, that there's times when I feel like, hey, we're moving towards like we're in the collaborating and integrating. And then I'll find as we continue moving, sometimes we go back and it's a fluid continuum. And that is how it really should be, because that is a true reflection of this work. Our work, as you all know, is really fluid. And so we shouldn't say, oh, I've really gotten to the collaborating and integrating part of the continuum, and that's where I'm sitting at with all my community-based partners, because to be truly honest and reflective, it should be fluid across the board. Our call out to the community involved many things, and I want to take a few minutes to share with all of you. And many of you may have already utilized these same approaches, and that's wonderful. And I'm always open to having any suggestions, please share it with me. So my team here at Expanded Learning in my LEA, we reached out to the community through many aspects. Of course, we worked with our district's purchasing department to make sure that, and it's posted that we need community partnerships through the request for qualification process that, I know every LEA has a process in place. But in addition to that, we knew that that wasn't enough. And there's always going to be gaps and holes with community partners not getting the information through the normal chains of promotion and outreach that a school district may have in place. And so with that, we made sure that we were also communicating with churches in our district. Connecting with different community organizations, community groups, and also being present at as many community events, whether it was tied to our LEA or not. And I think that was these efforts were really pivotal in getting our LEA to have what I call a boom of community partners or community organizations coming forward and say, hey, we are interested. Let's talk about what unique ideas we have to partner with your district to help bring new experiences and new learning to the students of Fresno Unified. And so with that, I do want you to take that and think about what have you already may have done or what you haven't started, and how can you take these tidbits of what we've tried in Fresno Unified and make it your own when you go back to your respective community or your LEA to figure out how to build these partnerships. Moving on, so what we've learned, our journey continues, and there is no, answer key to doing this work. But I want you to all know that one of the best practices that we've put in place is we've really solicited student, parent feedback, as well as school site feedback, and then ultimately community feedback on what's working with these partnerships as far as the experiences and the quality of the experiences. What are the challenges? And how can we remove any challenges or barriers? What are the lessons learned? And what can we also celebrate? Because it's very easy for us to sometimes go into the rabbit hole of what's not working, and then we forget to pause and also celebrate what has been working and how do we capitalize on what's working, and have that become contagious, have that become viral, and for it to just expand. I want to share with all of you that we in what we've learned so far in soliciting all of the feedback from the different groups, we've learned that we need to also build a rubric, a common rubric, so that when anybody who is from my LEA or the management or CEOs of community-based organizations and partners, when they want to walk their programs, we want them to use the same rubric so that it's consistent across the board to really look at and assess the quality, because everyone's perspective is valuable and everybody sees it through a different lens when they walk any of our programs out of expanded learning, whether it is after school programs or any of our programs during what we call our winter and summer intersession. And so the rubric is something that we're always refining and trying to test and see, hey, is this rubric capturing what it is essentially that we want? We also want to get more parent feedback on the rubric, because we want our parents to also let us know what it is that they see as valuable and important for the experiences for their babies to be in our programs. And so that's one of the things that, lessons that we've learned, and we want to be fully transparent with our community-based organization partners. And so looking ahead and moving forward, we do want to bring the revised rubric and make sure that every CBO that we partner with, they understand that this is what we're looking at. And it's not a gotcha. It is a what are areas that we need to discuss and review in hopes of improving the overall experience for our students. I do want to share with all of you also that, yes, I recognize and I know how challenging and sometimes intimidating it can be to really work on building community partnerships. But I do want to remind everyone that community partnerships are the best thing since sliced bread in regards to building our expanded learning opportunities and programs for kids. And the reason why, so simple, but yet I know even I myself sometimes forget. The reason why is because the people who are most committed to quality experiences and also the most committed people to the upbringing and shaping all of these young lives of the students in all of the LEAs throughout our entire state of California are the community, because these children are them and they are part of these children's lives. And so they are the most committed individuals I have come across in my time as an educator, in wanting to jump in both feet and wanting to really do what is right, and always wanting to learn about what new interests and what new ideas our students and parents have in regards to making changes as needed for the expanded learning experiences. And I'm really excited to report that with us here in my LEA, continuing to keep that open door policy, continuing to encourage our current community partners to please help recruit, please help bring in more. I think the sky truly is the limit, and we want more. And now our community partners who are currently providing these wonderful, enriching experiences that my LEA would have never been able to do on its own, they are our biggest recruiters. So we have a saying that everyone is a recruiter, and we are living true to that. Because now my community partners, they're the ones saying, hey, Connie, I know so-and-so, and they are excited to, get a meeting on the books with you to talk about what they would love to build with you through expanded learning with this unique activity or opportunity. And that is music to my ears, music to my LEA. Everyone throughout my LEA, especially all the decision makers within my district, they are very excited. They always are asking, do you have the new catalog, the new camp catalog available? Because we're hearing great buzz in the community about it, and we can't wait to see it in print, just to see how far we have grown. And so with that, always being reflective, but not being afraid of this uncharted water, new territory for many of us. My LEA and we are moving into, our second summer of great community partnerships, and we're growing from last summer of about 60 individual community-based camp offerings to we are looking at about 85 this summer, but we're still working on that. So that number may change as we get closer to the summer. And so I want to let you know that it's definitely possible. Yes, challenges, be ready for that. I think all of us who are on this call are masters of facing challenges. Just be ready to be really reflective, but also be ready to work with individuals who may not have had experience working with you. If you are from a LEA, they will need a little bit of coaching up if need be. And so before I end my time here, I do want to share with all of you that one of the things that we learned as a best practice this year, and we are looking to continue that, is with all of our community-based organization partners with my LEA. This year, we had a huge effort where we brought in all of our community partners, had them bring all of their staff to partake in all of the professional learning that my LEA staff out of expanded learning go through. And so it was a huge undertaking, but it was desperately needed for many things. One, so that we knew that all of our community-based staff are going to receive the same information, and it further solidifies that we're all in this together. It further solidifies the unity that exists with my LEA and all of the community-based organization partners. And so that was one thing that, again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, clarity, coherence, and support. That was one thing that I was able to get support right away when I mentioned it to all of my decision makers and stakeholders in my LEA, because they said that's a brilliant idea, because that further helped make sure that all of our community-based organizations really had the same opportunities to get the same trainings so that they can be best prepared to work and provide services at the highest quality, regardless if they were a Fresno Unified employee out of expanded learning, or if they were from, community-based organization X, Y, and Z. And so that was how we also leveled the playing field to make sure that all of the adults who were providing any kind of service for any children in Fresno Unified through expanded learning programs, they were all the same. And so that aligns with how earlier I mentioned, regardless if you are a LEA with just ELO-P only funding or ELO-P with other state expanded learning funding, to the recipients, it should be just one. And this was also our way to make sure that all of our people and personnel doing the true heavy lifting, the true boots on the ground, interacting with students, providing direct everyday service to kids, that they were all seen as one. And so we are very excited to continue moving in this direction and growing our community-based partnerships in Fresno Unified. I do want to let all of you know, if you are ever interested in coming to Fresno Unified to just walk and explore and learn alongside with us. We're always making sure that we have a great regular presence in all of our expanded learning programs all year round. Please just let us know. Reach out to me. I am always willing and happy to receive anyone coming in to just see what we're doing here. And then, I'm always interested in visiting other LEAs just to see the many great things that are being that are taking place in other places, in hopes that I can bring a little bit of what other districts are doing and incorporating it into my district. And with that, this concludes my portion, and I'm going to give it back to Malia.
Leah, do I just take it or do you need to?
Yeah, you can run with it, Julie.
Okay, sounds great. So, hi everyone. Connie, that was really great. So, happy to echo many of the things that you shared as well. But I think there we go. I'm Julie Brooks. I'm CEO of Woodcraft Rangers. If you're not familiar with us, we are a community-based organization that's been in Los Angeles for 101 years. So deeply rooted is an understatement. But we serve right now about 120 sites, the vast majority elementary and middle school. We're partnering with 15 LEAs in LA County, charter schools and districts, and about 1,000 staff doing that work across the county. Our programmatic model, we've been whole child before whole child was whole child. We've been running on a whole child model for 100 years. And we pride ourselves in being able to customize per exactly what Connie is speaking to, right? Because every community's needs is extremely different, and we want to make sure always that that each program is guided by student, family, and school needs and goals. So, and I think that's true of community-based organizations in general, right? Especially if you have deep roots in the community, as Connie mentioned. So. Let's continue. And then just a little bit about me, if you're interested, by the way. I've been in this work with Woodcraft for 6 years, since 2018. So similar tenure to Connie there, but I've been working with youth in community for over 20 years in different settings and informal education. So children's theater, children's museums, and now putting a lot of that together. And then some critical need services in nonprofit as well. So I come with significant experience with my team, hundreds and hundreds of years experience collectively, and serve on a lot of those advocacy bodies that are mentioned as well, because that is also a strength of CBOs too. So a little bit about us. All right, so I just wanted to share some insights and some learnings that we've seen since expanded learning opportunities program funding has been made available. And I think it's really important to note this is a transformational opportunity, right? I know it's difficult and it can be challenging, but I think it's really, really important to stay focused on that North Star, that universal high quality programs are available now to young people across California in a way that I think many of us probably never imagined. But we also, I think it is important to note, and I think Connie said it so well as Malia, that it's going to take all of us, right? It's going to take all of our experience and all of our resources to be able to make that promise of universal expanded learning a reality. So just a couple of insights as we've seen working with districts as, you know, we're a few years into expanded learning opportunities program, the universal piece. We've seen partnerships kind of land in 3 areas. We're calling it the 3 C's here, because I think it's important to note that the partnerships can look different, right? And it really depends on the internal resources and capabilities of the district or the LEA, and also, right, this likewise, the same for CBOs. It also depends on the vision, right, for the program. So sometimes we see a district say, we'd like for you to run a comprehensive program, and we'd like for you to kind of do everything, right, soup to nuts. And then we'll discuss, right, the efficacy of that program over time, clearly in collaboration with district leadership. But they kind of say, you know, we really need this owned operationally by a CBO or multiple CBOs. Second, we see an interesting partnership where there is what we call complementary, where a partnership may be a single CBO provider or a district run kind of general operating of the program, right, overall. And then a CBO or multiple CBOs may provide additional services or kind of plug in or complementary services, whether that be specialty enrichment, outdoor education, additional workshops, training, field trips, right? But kind of bringing the CBO in as complementary to the base program, right? Where those 2 pieces work together. And then sometimes we're actually seeing, it's interesting, and this is kind of popping up in ELO-P only districts who may have had historically not an expanded learning, publicly funded expanded learning program, but may have a child development program, right? And are looking to merge those, or may have fee for service programs and are looking to merge those in a comprehensive program. And in some of those instances, we may see where a CBO staff are actually very much working in day-to-day collaboration, right, side by side with district or other CBO staff in a very, very collaborative approach. So those are just 3, and this is just to give kind of a little bit of insight to no partnership is the same, and it really depends on community and LEA needs, and also the resources that are available, right? So we're seeing that a little bit differently. We can move to the next slide. So I just want to spend a little time on what to look for in a partnership, right? I echo wholeheartedly, right, Malia's comments about trust, about integrity, about open and clear communication, and Connie's about making sure that we're always centering student and family needs, that we have mechanisms to make sure that we are always attuned to those needs, right? So at Woodcraft, we have a regular cadence of focus groups, of student-led, of student surveys, of ways to be able to gather that on an ongoing basis so that the program can stay dynamic, because things change and needs change. We also have frequent communication with directors of expanded learning, with all of the stakeholders within a partnership to make sure that we really understand the goals of principals, of expanded learning departments, and of the district or LEA overall. So that's really important, because I think this is really critical information that then moves into what is the program vision and design. And Connie described that process so well as really, right, she said she's got a rubric, what she wants to see, right, and I'm kind of speaking to LEAs, right, really defining what it is you want to see, because then I think once you know what you want to see in your program, you can determine, right, where your internal capabilities are and what kind of pieces you want to hold, and then, right, you look at what's available in your community-based organizations to determine how that partnership can really fit together to be able to bring that vision to life. But it really starts with that vision vision design. And we're so fortunate to be in a moment with Expanded Learning Opportunities program where we can really deliver high quality, right? Where if you want those specialty enrichments, if you want, right, social emotional learning to be the forefront, right, you really can find those partners within the community that understand those needs and that can provide those individual services, whether that's a single provider or a constellation of providers. It's really important to kind of settle in on what that operational model looks like, right? Are you looking to, as an LEA, actually do the main operations of a program and bring in kind of either a single CBO or multiple CBOs to be able to provide those complementary services? Or do you not have the internal capacity, right? And are you really looking for a CBO to be able to provide comprehensive services? Are you looking to merge existing programs, right? All of those things really, really require different conversations in partnership to make sure that there is alignment. And I think it's really important to talk here about alignment. When we talk about alignment, right, we oftentimes in expanded learning say, how do we align to the school day? And academic alignment, making sure that we are focused on the right things, is certainly important. But when it comes to partnership, alignment requires conversations and those open and trusting communication in a variety of ways. Ensuring that, right, we're the same team, right? We're representing a united message to parents and students, right? We're approaching
behavior in the same way so that the kids have the same vocabulary from right during the day to after school. But even how you approach SEL at Woodcraft, right, we're aligned to the Castle framework, right? Can we use the same vocabulary so that we make sure that we have the same goals, and then we're also measuring the same pieces, right? So really making sure, and of course policies, right? Making sure that we're all aligned on policies, because I know this question has come up in previous webinars, but certainly CBOs are held to the same compliance standards as districts, right, operating their own programs or district staff on site. So it's important for us all to be on the same page about what policy, right, what local policies there are in place, and making sure that we all meet all of those compliance pieces. So it really is about figuring out what you want and then knowing your community, right, and finding those pieces that meet the needs of your students, right, interest, family needs, and then specific demographics. We see sometimes a focus needing to be placed in for a particular population of students, right? Whether that's early learning, right? If you're flooded right now with TK students, finding a provider that really understands early learning frameworks, or perhaps you have a lot of English language learners, and really finding CBOs that understand, right, that population and language acquisition. If we're all encountering students with a lot of individual needs, and considering inclusion, right? So whether it's program or whether it's student supports, right, really understanding what your needs are so that you can find the community-based organizations that can meet them. And even finding that constellation that can serve those needs, because no one provider can do everything. So I want to talk a little bit, because some of the partnership conversations also have to be brass tacks, right? So when we talk about capacity and staffing and wages, it's hard for all of us right now, right? So we know that it's still hard for schools when it comes to staffing. It's important to understand, right? A CBO's budget may look different than an internal LEA budget. And I think sometimes we see confusion there, right? An LEA budget may have embedded costs like like HR costs that are not necessarily part of the expanded learning budget, but a CBO does have those costs, right? So when you see CBO, right, when you have budget conversations, it's important to acknowledge all of the costs that are necessary and the wages that are going to be necessary to deliver on that vision, right? If you're looking for, right, specialty enrichment, like we have mariachi programs, right? Those right, require an investment for quality above maybe what something else is. If you're looking for sports tournaments, right, understanding what the cost of those programs are and the wages that's necessary to meet what we all know is a very, very difficult staffing market. So those pieces are really important. It's also important to have realistic conversations with your partner to say, what's the right timeline, right? What's the right inflection point to open programs? What kind of time do you need to be able to make make sure that you can deliver when we need you to, right? Understanding that that things do take time to be able to implement fully and well. And your CBO, you've heard it before, but your CBO partners want to deliver, right? But they also we all need to be on a page about how to be able to do that, and ensure there is a seamless and integrated collaboration that's been mentioned. And really thinking about what quality investments look like. So, so I think it has been mentioned, right? We know that some folks have ELO-P only funding, and some folks have braided funding that they can blend and braid. I want to echo Connie's comment about, right, parents shouldn't know what funding source is coming. Parents should just know that everyone's participating in an expanded learning program, and we want to offer the same high quality program to every student that walks in the door. But it is important to consider, right, how to blend and braid that funding on the back end to make sure that that costs for that vision that you have are truly met. So it is important, that blending and braiding. And then it's not, right, I think sometimes we think about community-based organizations bringing a particular thing, right? So maybe it's a dance, right? You see folklorico dancers on this slide, or it's a sports program, right, that you're looking for. But I think it's important also when you're partnering with the CBO to think about other quality investments and quality measures, right? Are you looking for lower ratios? What kind of family engagement are you looking for? Do you want a CBO that can coordinate your field trips? Do you want outdoor education, right? So those kinds of pieces are also really important, right? Do you want, right? So there's enrichment pieces, but there's also things like how you engage families, additional training and planning time, right? Those things are also contribute to quality, and maybe may get overlooked sometimes, right? So I think it's important to be on a page, right? And I love, Connie, when you're saying, right, you want alignment between your district staff and expectations, your district staff and your CBOs, right? The same is true, right? Right. What planning is needed? Planning is needed on both sides, right? And the same is true, right? So for example, right, we know that many of these ELO-P sites are very, very large, having cleared wait lists over time, require full-time site coordinators, or possibly assistant site coordinators to make sure that everything runs smoothly, right? Because sometimes, right, a site that just a few years ago may have been an 83 contract, right, now may host over 200 kids, right? So, and the resources required to ensure quality, not just compliance with quality there, may have changed, right? So having continual conversations about what those elements of quality really are. And finally, this is maybe not the most excited, but it's important, right, for us to consider risk. And we know that this is very important to LEAs, and it's important to CBOs as well. We know, right, Malia mentioned the difference in a vendor and a partner, and especially for folks that have ELO-P funds only, and this is are new to expanded learning partnership. While we are required to have the same, right, we are held to the same standards as you are, right, to be able to implement the programs according to Ed Code. It's important to note, right, that sometimes, I think Malia was right, sometimes partnership is different at this level, right? We are unique in the fact that as CBO partners in expanded learning, right, we have responsibility for student supervision in a way that most other partners won't, right? So, right, certainly an air conditioning vendor, right, like those kinds of vendors wouldn't, but even folks that come in during the school day exist within an ecosystem of supports that the school has. In expanded learning, you're giving a lot of responsibility to your partners to be able to really, you're entrusting them with the full responsibility of student supervision and program delivery. So risk is important. It's important to ask questions of your CBO about data collection, right, to ensure that we're in compliance, about ratios, about how staff, right, meet the requirements as well of programs. I mean, it's important to talk about legal things, right? Is there a history of of legal issues with, right? Because we know that LEAs, right, want to minimize their own risk and need to have those conversations if you're expecting a CBO to take on those responsibilities. And finally, right, you want to make sure that your dollars are used well. So having conversations about both fiscal responsibility, whether that's budgets or whether that's clean audits, is really important, right? Because we know that this is a lot of, right, that you're trusting us with, right, when it comes to the care of your young people and your communities. But it's also important, right? We know that it's important. So having those conversations, while they're not the most fun to have, they're not nearly as fun as folklorico and mariachi and robotics. It's very important so that both sides are protected and have security in the relationship as well. And again, I just want, right, things change, right? So keeping the partnership open, keeping the communication open is so important. And I just want to echo one thing that Connie said finally, is just appreciating each other. Partnership is not easy, but when you keep the kids and families first, even hard conversations are the most important to make sure that we continue to be in service, right, and keep that North Star. So it may not be easy, but I think it is important to take a step back and recognize wins and appreciate one another because it is hard work, but it's very important work to be done. And I think if you think it's easy, you're probably not doing it well, right? So I wouldn't expect it to be easy because most things that are worth doing, right, can be challenging. So thank you so much for having me. I hope this has been helpful to be able to share a few insights that we've had and a few things that we think CBOs, especially CBOs and LEA, should have as conversations to be able to work toward that integrated partnership.
Thank you so much, Julie. And thank you, Connie, for sharing your wisdom, your insights. Thank you for your leadership. And Julie, as you said, this work isn't easy. And if it is easy, you're probably not pushing enough, right? Not pushing the limits enough. There's probably more integration that can happen. So thank you all for all the work that you're doing and in this space. And so I am going to actually pass it over to the Jeff Davis to get us transitioned over to the regional breakouts to continue this conversation of CBO and LEA partnerships. I really hope that you take anything that came from the presentation today. I know we throw a lot at you today, a lot of different resources, a lot of different ideas. I know this is kind of a big concept. There's a lot of different ways you can go with this type of partnership. And so I hope you have some rich dialogue in your breakout sessions. Again, there's no one perfect way to do this. No one has the right perfect answer when it comes to how to do it perfectly, right? So I just remind you all to do that or to remember that piece. And I will pass it to you, Jeff, to get us transitioned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Malia, and thank you to our speakers today. I encourage you, please take some time, give some love to our speakers for sharing of their knowledge and experience with us today. It really is complex and hard work. It does take an ecosystem to support our children, youth, and families, and we know that ecosystems are most healthy when they are diverse. So partnerships bring that rich history of community-based organizations and all of the community partnerships that they hold, and they bring those to bear on the school site. So thank you to both of our speakers for sharing our knowledge. And in that spirit of partnership, also know that you are not alone. There is a system of support for expanded learning that is out there, ready to support you as you implement high quality expanded learning programs throughout the state. So thank you also for all the work you do each and every day. We can take a look at the next slide because we all are into data-driven continuous quality improvement. So we would love to know about your experience and what you learned and how we can improve in our efforts to provide opportunities like this. And then finally, it is almost 11:20, so we are right on time to sort of begin transitioning to our regional breakouts. So you can kind of see there on the screen that we're of the sort of where folks will be. And I guess but well, we'll be able to see on the breakouts which rooms that we're going in, but just noting that 3 and 6 and 1 and 2 are going to be paired together. And here are your instructions on how to join the regional breakouts. One, you can see the picture down there. You should soon, when the breakout rooms are open, you'll see that square. If you're not able to access that square for whatever reason, you can rename yourself with the room that you want to go, and we'll make sure that you get there. And if you cannot do either one of those, hang out and we'll get you there. That's how we'll join the breakout rooms today. And we hope that you enjoy your conversation with your regional colleagues in those breakout rooms in reflection on today's workshop content. I think that's all I've got for folks. So you can go ahead and begin to transition to those breakout spaces now.